Greetings fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to another Blood Splattered vlog. So this week we once again have another 2016 catch-up movie, and most likely one of the last 2016 catch-up vlogs because I really need to get that video out before the end of February. In all honesty, I should have had it out last month, but hey, here we are. What can you do? I always seem to make these videos late. Anyway, the video I'm going to be talking about today is actually one of the biggest horror releases of last year, and that is of course The Conjuring 2 by James Wan. And for those of you who don't know, I was actually a really big fan of The Conjuring 1, so I was actually looking forward to this movie up until I saw the trailer, and then I thought the trailer looked kind of wonky. I don't know, there was just something about that scene in the trailer where all the crosses turn upside down that just made me go like, really? But there was still a part of me going like, hey, you know, the movie might be better than the trailer lets on. It might actually be pretty good. And in total honesty, it was really good. The Conjuring 2 is a really solid sequel to The Conjuring 1. I don't think it's as good or better than The Conjuring 1, but it's definitely a solid movie. Much like The Conjuring 1, it's got some really great scares, some amazing cinematography, some fantastic acting, and it's got a lot of heart. But unlike The Conjuring 1, there was a few scares here and there that came across as unintentionally hilarious to me. It's not as bad as the difference between Insidious 2 and Insidious 1, where I thought Insidious 2 was just laughable all the way through. But there was a couple scares where I could tell I was supposed to jump out of my seat, but instead I went and I don't know, maybe if I saw it in the theaters, I would have had a completely different reaction than seeing it at home on my TV, but it is what it is. But yeah, despite that, there actually is some really amazing scares in this movie. In fact, there was one entity in particular that got me really good every time it showed up. And of course, I'll talk about that when we get to the spoilers. But I do think I should probably address the elephant in the room when it comes to the Conjuring series, and that's that one of the big things you have to get over when watching these movies is the fact that they're presented as true stories. Because these movies are loosely based upon the real-life experiences of Ed and Lorraine Warren, the demonologists slash demon hunters, who are probably most famous for being involved in the Amityville case. Now the problem here is that if you're like me, then you're gonna be sitting there throughout this entire movie going like, this really happened? Bullshit. And then you'll probably end up looking up all the things you can about these cases going like, yeah, like pretty much it's complete bullshit. It is based on actual cases, but it's also very clear that the Warrens weren't entirely the most truthful people. Like there's this one famous scenario where Ed Warren walked into one of these houses that was supposedly haunted and went, oh man, there's a lot of money to be made here. I'm paraphrasing obviously, but that does not sound like someone who's in this for the right reasons. Whereas these movies never bring up compensation and make it seem like these two are solely in it for completely altruistic reasons. Which, to be completely honest, I do not buy. That all being said, however, if you take these movies as works of fiction as opposed to being real stories, then they are far more enjoyable. And thanks to a filmmaker like James Wan, they're both incredibly effective horror movies. And despite who the real Warrens were, the two lead actors totally sell this version of them. And against your better judgment, you will find yourself rooting for their relationship throughout the entirety of this movie, even if it got a little sappy towards the end. But honestly, it was sappy in a good way. I was starting to tear up. I didn't tear up, but I was almost there. Anyway, my fellow gorehounds, if you like The Conjuring 1, then you will definitely like The Conjuring 2. Much like The Conjuring 1, this is 100% a super effective 70s style religious horror movie. And I think it's about time we moved on to the spoilers. Okay, so I mentioned earlier that the Warrens are most famous for working on the Amityville case, and this movie actually opens up with that case. Which is kind of funny, it's the thing they're most famous for, but it's kind of like a little footnote in this movie. But basically, they're working the Amityville case, Lauren Warren has this like supernatural ability in order to like see ghosts and shit. And she can also feel their presence, so she's essentially a paranormal psychic. And she ends up seeing this one nun-ghost demon thing that ends up showing her her husband's death. So then it cuts, her and her husband get super famous over the Amityville case, but she really wants to quit. Because she's convinced that the vision she saw of her husband's death is real and that if they continue, he's gonna die. Naturally, her husband's not totally on board with this, but he goes with it anyway. Meanwhile, over in England, this one British family that seems like they're straight out of Oliver Twist. Please, sir, I want some more. Well, too bad. All you're getting is demonic possession. So the two little girls in this family end up playing with a Ouija board, though I think it's presented as a spirit board because Ouija is copyrighted and I'm not sure if the Ouija boards were actually a thing then. I don't know, I'd have to look that up and I'm really too lazy to do that right now, so feel free to correct me in the comment section. Anyway, they play around with the spirit board, they get no response, and one of the girls throws it under her bed. And that's when some weird shit starts happening. She starts waking up in weird places in the middle of the night like she was sleepwalking. She starts hearing voices around the house. And her sister ends up waking up seeing her having a conversation with someone who is not there. And this ends up escalating to the point where the ghosts or demons in this house really don't give a shit about who knows. They just start levitating beds, throwing shit all around the room like The Exorcist. They start possessing the little girl and screaming shit like, "Get out of my house, this is my house!" And shit goes from 0 to 11 pretty damn fast. So this case ends up getting international news attention, which leads to people putting all their eyes onto the church. And the church is all like, we can't get involved with this unless we're sure that would ruin the church's reputation. So they send a priest out to the Warrens to ask the Warrens to go investigate for them. With basically the assumption being, hey, whatever evidence you get will determine what we end up doing. And of course, in the movie version, Lorraine Warren really doesn't want to do it because, hey, her husband might die, so she's like, I don't want to do this. But ultimately, their desire to help people wins out over her desire to save her husband. And I almost guarantee in the real life situation, it was probably more money or fame that caused them to take this case, but hey, you know what? Whatever. We're gonna go with the heart option. Because honestly, that makes for a better movie. So they take the case, they fly out to England, they interview the family, including the little girl, and while Lorraine isn't feeling anything in the house, the little girl's story starts to ring true to her. She starts to relate to her. So then they decide to conduct an interview with the entity itself by triggering the girl's possession. But the entity tells the little girl that they must not look at her when she does this, otherwise he's not going to speak to them. So they all turn their heads, and the demon presents itself, and this is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. Because this entire scene plays out with a close-up of Ed Warren, with the little girl slightly blurred out in the background. And as they talk with the demon, she starts to turn more and more into this old man. But you can't make out the features because it's all blurred. And of course, they record the whole interview, and the entity is all like, "Get out of my house, this is my house!" And afterwards, they're like, well, this isn't totally evidence because it's entirely possible that she turned her head in order to trick us. So they conduct a few tests, and then some more weird shit starts happening. Like, the little girl gets pulled into this room that's completely locked up. So it's like, how the fuck did she get into that room if it's all closed off? Though, based on the movie, she could totally have climbed in through the window, but that's just me. But then there was this other sequence, which was my other favorite scene in the movie, where the family is staying at the neighbor's house so they don't get hurt by the demons or the ghost or whatever's in their house. And there's this one sequence where the little boy wakes up and he hears the dog trying to scratch to get outside. Well, technically he's not scratching, he's ringing this little bell that indicates he wants to go outside. And he goes down the hallway to the back door to let the dog out, and then the dog turns into this giant, like, fucking tall man. I think he's called, like, the Curvy Man or something like that, because they actually play this, like, nursery rhyme earlier about the Curvy Man. And that sequence was fucking great. The Curvy Man looked like he might have been done with some sort of stop motion or something, or at least made to look like stop motion. Because that was one of the few sequences that really fucking creeped me the fuck out. Every time the Curvy Man showed up, he was hands down the scariest thing in this movie. And there's like a great sequence where Ed Warren is walking through the house and the Curvy Man is stalking him from behind but slightly blurred out. That was also creepy as fuck. On the downside though, there is this one demon that keeps showing up in Lorraine Warren's dreams. And that's this creepy nun demon that ends up like telling her all about her husband's death. And there are some scenes, like this one scene where she ends up like being a shadow on this wall, like walking all the way towards this painting of her, which was a painting that Ed Warren drew because he was seeing the demon in his dreams too. And then she like takes the painting and like screams and like runs at Lorraine. I know that scene might have been scarier in the theater, but for whatever reason I'm sitting there going like, holy shit, that's hilarious. And if that scene scared you, I'm sorry. I don't mean to belittle your fright, but just God, it didn't work for me. Anyway, things escalate to the point where the little girl gets possessed and she ends up completely trashing this kitchen, but they catch it on camera and it seems to indicate that she's faking it. But then it turns out she's not faking it, the entity just told her that if she didn't do it, they would kill her family. With the key word being, they would kill her family. Indicating there is more than one entity present in this house. And of course, Ed and Lorraine Warren eventually figure this out, but at that point, I am now going into the finale of the movie and I am not gonna spoil that. So if you want to know what happens in the finale of this movie, you're gonna have to see for yourself. I mean, does Ed Warren die? Was Lorraine Warren's dreams all true? Or was it all bullshit? Find out for yourself. Anyway, my fellow gorehounds, I hope you've been enjoying these 2016 catch-up vlogs as much as I've been enjoying doing them. I've seen a lot of really great movies and a couple bad ones. And in total honesty, I am planning on continuing vlogs like this for the rest of the year, but I'm gonna be moving on from 2016 catch-up vlogs to whatever the hell I'm watching this week. And if that idea sounds good to you, please leave a comment below letting me know. And don't worry, my normal Blood Splatter Cinema episodes will still be coming out. I'm actually working on one for Basket Case right now, and hopefully I can get that out to you soon enough. And with that all said, my fellow gorehounds, peace out, and I'll catch y'all later.